In reality, we should receive teachings in order to establish spiritual connections that are free from any bias towards high and low. Through such conduct, like that of a bumblebee, you will become rich in Dharma, empowerments, and transmissions. So this being unbiased, that is a very important point, like being unbiased toward high and low. So whatever Dharma it is, you can look at all of them, but ultimately there's only one essential point that it always comes down to. That is bodhicitta. So all practices come down to the altruistic mind. And the altruistic mind slowly is what then ultimately diminishes self-grasping. Every time altruism arises, self-grasping diminishes naturally. So this point is very important about being unbiased toward any kind of Dharma tradition. And of course, then when it comes to your own practice, you can engage in one practice. So it says the conduct that is like a bumblebee. Also in the Jigong Ba had said that someone like a bee is skilled in taking the honey from the flower, discerning what is the flower, but without analyzing the outer flower, it takes the inner honey. And so similarly, the spiritual teacher is like the flower, and the Dharma that he gives is like the honey. And so taking it then is becoming like a bumblebee. So when it comes to the practice of the Dharma in an authentic way, this was also similarly explained by the Sakyapa, who also explained that a bumblebee skillfully extracts the honey from a flower through its scent. So it is a skillful way of accumulating merit. And so, for example, there are some who can gather vast assemblies of Sangha. Now, for example, for most it is very difficult to even have an assembly of thousands. When there's hundreds of people, then it's already large. But then there is monasteries like Siddhartha and Dzogchen in Tibet that have like over 10,000 of Sangha members. And no matter how much the communists try to destroy it, it still remains kind of steadfastly. And so this is the ultimate result of the temporary and the ultimate benefit of the Dharma. And to find examples, look at the life stories of Chowa Atisha and Thangdong Gyalpo. So look at the life stories in the various books about the past siddhas. Look at what they have done and look at the results that they have achieved, then you will understand. And the object of your supplication must be like them unmistaken, for if it is mistaken, you will stray onto the wrong path. So the object of supplication, now when the view is high, then it really makes no difference. But for worldly beings, when they supplicate just for the purpose of this life, like a deity, then it becomes just like a worldly god, one is like worldly being. But if one supplicates with the attainment of enlightenment in mind, then one supplicates to the wisdom being. So this must be unmistaken. In this way, one supplicates to the wisdom deities or the three jewels. And as we mentioned, within the three jewels, it is the Sangha. So this is what this probably means, but it probably also has much more meaning. It says, then, though your experience and realization may be great, it will be impossible to realize actual Mahamudra. So this is a point that I've mentioned before over and over again. So we have to look at our own mind to know whether or not we have gained this realization. We have said that one's own mind is actually the Buddha. For example, it is just like iron that you make like a knife with. So if you sharpen it and cut it again and again, it becomes sharper and sharper. For example, in Japan, they have this like sword, like a knife that is very fine and sharp, so it can be bent, but then again it can be stretched out and cut even iron. So it is the kind of like very sharp knife. And so similarly, one refines the strength of one's own awareness, and that is achieved, then there is no doubt as to whether or not it can cut through all thoughts and afflictive emotions. So that is actually, as you mentioned, the measure for one's realization of the view. And to come to that point, we train with the thoughts and the afflictive emotions become the training whereby we master awareness and the liberation of thoughts. And so then when awareness is developed, then there is no doubt as to whether or not it can cut through or liberate the afflictive emotions. And so then it is said, when one recognizes the nature of afflictive emotions, then all suffering is an ocean of nectar. So then the afflictions are transformed, then anger becomes the wisdom of clarity, and attachment, the wisdom of bliss, emptiness. And so in this way, each of the afflictive emotions is transformed through practice. Then this is my heart advice, so bear it in mind. Someone who has looked extensively at the Dharma and Dharma teachings will understand the meaning of this. But if one hasn't, one could interpret these words as criticism. But they are not criticism, they are the ultimate advice. Guru Padmasambhava's words serve as a witness to them, and this advice is the meaning of entering into the gateway of Dharma. So with regard to what has been mentioned before, many doubts may arise, and for that one should look at the Dhamma and the Dharma teachings. So there is a slight difference in the way they are described. The Dhamma, or the orally transmitted teachings, also often refer to the tantras of the new tantric tradition. And then the Nyingma, the old tradition, were the teachings that were brought to Tibet by Guru Rinpoche, and then also translated now by scholars like Khen Rinpoche and others under Chisung Detsen, the king. And so then masters have practiced them and results have emerged. And so there's the 4 classes of Tantra in the new Tantric system, and the 4 levels of approach and accomplishment according to the old Tantric system has the same meaning, but the old Tantric system is what kind of condenses the essence of those 4 classes of Tantra into one. But the ultimate meaning is really the same. The ultimate meaning of mantra is really the same. And so so what this part in the text here is saying is that for someone who has not looked at these scriptures, what might happen is that people get jealous at each other. So then in the next page it says, so keep these instructions in mind, lest later you become like someone with emaciated fingers splashing around in water. So when we talk about going into the ocean, we can speak about it, but we are actually not really in the ocean yet and swimming. So we're just speaking about it. So this is an example, which means that one speaks about it, but one doesn't actually have practical experience in it. So then later, when you actually end up in the ocean, then it will be very difficult because you don't know how to swim. For example, like me, when I was once in Los Angeles, I was swallowed by the waves in the ocean, not knowing how to swim. So the point here is that it's through practice that that your practice becomes like kind of stabilized. Otherwise, without actual practice, it will be very difficult. So then when death suddenly occurs, the mind becomes flustered over what needs to be done. So regarding the death state, then there are many teachings on the various stages of dissolution. So then it says regarding the stages of dissolution and so on. There are many stages of dissolution, but mainly we have to gain certainty within our own mind through practice. Regarding the stages of dissolution and so on, even if you know a lot about them, such knowledge isn't necessary. What you should surely practice, though, is the following. So many stages of dissolution are described, for example, in the Bardo Turdur, the liberation upon hearing, the Bardo. And it's good to hear that because whatever you have heard will be of benefit in the Bardo. So, for example, now when we are alive, we hear along the reading transmission and so forth, and empowerments and so on. Even though we hear them, we might not understand them, but there is something called an unfailing memory. It is called the retainer mantra of not forgetting. So even if one doesn't understand the meaning now, after one has died, the Bardo consciousness possesses a clairvoyant ability, so it will remember all of the things, all the transmissions, and all of the things it has heard, all the Dharma, and at this point, with this heightened awareness, will understand its meaning unobstructedly, and that is due to possessing Buddha nature. Therefore, we should develop trust in whatever we hear, and then practice in the following way. Then, so it says, above the crown of yourself, visualized as the Yidam, visualize the Guru Amitabha, in whose form all the Buddhas gather as one. View whatever you own, your body, enjoyments, relatives, land, houses, and wealth as a single mandala, and offer it 3 times with the words, the ground is sprinkled with scented water, and so on. So you visualize yourself as the Yidam that you are familiar with, that you usually practice. Even though there are many Yidam deities, it is fine to just practice a single one. It is good to just practice a single one, whichever one appears in your mind. So the deity has to appear in your mind. Tibetans, for example, when they encounter even just a slight difficulty, they call for Tara, because Tara is a deity that easily appears in our mind. And so now, also for you like Westerners and so on, you can visualize whatever deity clearly comes to your mind, and in an instant have it appear in your mind. And so you are the deity, and above your crown, you should visualize the Guru. So this is just according to like the words here. The words are clear. So within the Guru, the mind of all the Buddhas after 3 times is complete. And this is like an imprint that we have to place into our mind right now while we are still alive. Because later on, at that point then, when we have died, it will be very difficult, because then many different thoughts arise within the mind and disturb the mind. Now when we think about various lamas and so on. So therefore, right now we have to put this imprint in the mind. So all the guru's body is the Nirmanakaya, the speech, the Sambhogakaya, and the mind, the Dharmakaya. And the Dharmakaya, the mind, is represented by the syllable Hung. So then we meditate on the syllable Hung again and again. And then once you have habituated to that, the Hung instantly arises in your mind. And when the Hung arises, your mind is one with the Guru's mind. So within one Guru's mind, all the Buddhas are complete. And within that, your own mind is complete. So you realize the inseparability of your own mind and the Guru's mind. And so the point is that this habitual imprint has to be placed into the mind right now. Right now, we have to develop trust. So view whatever you own, your body, enjoyments, relatives, land, houses, and wealth as a single mandala, and offer it 3 times with the words, the ground is sprinkled with scented water, so on, like a benefactor who has already given away the offering, and so forth. So this is what this means is that we must not develop clinging attachment. When you become attached, the mind goes out to the object of attachment and dissolves with it, just like water dissolving with earth. And then as a result, one takes on a negative rebirth. So when you make an offering, you think that I've everything I have, I've given it all away. Everything is already offered, given away to the 3 jewels. So it is like you own nothing. You have given away, given up self-grasping. Because self-grasping, it's clinging to mine, is of no benefit. For example, if you're attached to your family members and your friends and so on, not only will this be of no benefit to them, it actually causes them harm after you have died. So if you die thinking of your family members and your friends with attachment, then also later when you have died and you are a bardo consciousness, you keep thinking about them, and then they will have dreams and all kinds of thoughts of he has died and so on. And that actually harms their mind. Without thinking about that, only think of the Buddha Amitabha, because you cannot have 2 thoughts in a mind simultaneously. So the crucial point here is, the most important point here is that it is enough if you only think of the Buddha Amitabha. So abandon all bonds of clinging, attachment, and think. Anyone take what you want, whoever wants to eat, eat. Focus your mind a bit and think, in this life right now, I have to practice the Dharma. So in this life, we have to practice the Dharma. This is something we need now, today. We say, I take refuge in the Dharma that is free from attachment. So do not be attached to samsara. That is the meaning of the Dharma. That needs to be an understanding that needs to be cultivated. So what we need here is to develop, detach from samsara. And then from a perfect Buddha to the tiniest microorganism, there is no one who can stay, no one who will not have to die. Thus it is said that one should develop great pride, thinking that by dedicating my life to the Dharma, there is no one happier than me. So you think, I have obtained a precious human body, and I have met with the Dharma. And there is no one in this world who doesn't have to die. So remember death and impermanence, the impermanence of this life, and so forth, and rejoice in the precious human birth and so on. And so then you will have some confidence, thinking that I am happy because later when I die, I will go to the Pure Land. So then you will be without grasping this life. So then recite the generation of bodhicitta 3 times and think, for the sake of wandering sentient beings, I shall awaken in the Dharmakaya at death. I shall manifest as the Sambhogakaya in the bardo, and as an incarnated Nirmanakaya, I shall act for the benefit of beings. These are the 3 kayas of the bardo. So if one has realized the view of Mahamudra, it is that one attains enlightenment in the Dharmakaya and the bardo. And then from that, naturally, the Sambhogakaya Pure Lands will manifest. One appears as the deity. So this explains the 3 levels of enlightenment in the bardo. So there are some individuals who, in the first bardo, attain enlightenment in the Dharmakaya. It is that these are those individuals who have habituated to the view. And then if one has habituated to the generation stage, one attains enlightenment in the Sambhogakaya. And if one has habituated to love and compassion, one attains enlightenment as a Nirmanakaya. But the kayas are complete already within the Dharmakaya. So if one attains enlightenment in the Dharmakaya, then the Sambhogakaya and the Nirmanakaya will naturally arise. So they don't disappear if one attains enlightenment in the Dharmakaya. So regarding these, the 3 kayas of the bardo, that is something that we have to that we can see how we will do in the bardo in terms of the 3 kayas by looking at our present experience when we are alive. So when we die, it is said that we go through 3 levels of dissolution, which is called the whiteness, redness, and blackness, that gradually, sequentially appear. First, when whiteness appears, white appearance, then all concepts of anger or hatred stop. Then when redness appears, all concepts of attachment come to an end. And then when blackness appears, all concepts of ignorance come to an end, and one falls into an unconscious state. And that is similar to falling into a deep sleep state, sleeping. We think that sleeping is so nice, because when we sleep, we come to the fundamental ground of the mind. It is just that normally we don't recognize that. So then there is some who practice dream yoga, for example, and they recognize that they are in a dream. So what happens is that first you fall asleep, then you come to a dream, and then the dream stops, and then there is a blackness, and then you fall into an unconscious state. And so those who have trained in the dream or deep sleep yoga, at that time do not lose consciousness, but recognition remains. So there are those who practice in especially the luminosity of the deep sleep state. And when you recognize the luminosity of deep sleep state, at this point, you do not fall into an unconscious kind of blackout state, but clear awareness is sustained. Batu Rinpoche had said this is similar to covering a butter lamp with a clay pot. So like putting a clay pot on a butter lamp. So then on the outside, it's dark. You don't see the light, but it is illuminating from within, inside. So this clear luminosity appears in such a way at that time. So it is said that if one is able to recognize this luminosity of the deep sleep state, then one attains enlightenment in the Dharmakaya and the Bardo. And then if one attains enlightenment in the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya will naturally arise. And if not, if one is not able to recognize the luminosity of the deep sleep state, some recognize the dream state. You recognize you're in a dream. Then you also recognize I'm in the bardo, because the dream state and the bardo state are exactly the same. So therefore, for example, in a dream, when you encounter some difficulties or fear in the dream, remember the Yidam deity. And for example, if you're able to remember Chenrezig or Tara instantly at that time of fear, then it is said that you will attain enlightenment in the Sambhogakaya in the bardo after death, even though you might not have attained enlightenment in the Dharmakaya. And then the third level is love and compassion. When you die, if you die with a mind of love and compassion for all sentient beings, it is said that this leads to enlightenment as Nirmanakaya. So if one were to separate those three levels, then these would be the three levels in the bardo. And wherever you are at, you can see for yourself by looking at your own mind. And it is also said that actually one's level of practice can also be seen in one's dreams. So this is another way of kind of measuring one's practice. So the next is an instruction on Poa. And so it says, while visualizing yourself as the deity, next block the 8 impure doors with 3 syllables, and so on. So this is something we train in while we are alive. And so there are, in the Poa instructions, there are very detailed instructions on how to visualize the channels and the chakras. And also it describes that there are 8 impure doors that need to be blocked. So there are 8 doors that the consciousness can leave through the force of karma at the time of death. So there are, for example, there are 3 doors. The 3 doors that are below the navel are the doors to the 3 lower realms related to the 3 poisons, the 3 afflicted emotions. So the first one below the navel is the anal path, is related to anger or hatred, and the urinary path is related to attachment and greed. And then the navel related to ignorance or birth as an animal. And then on the upper part of the body, so above the navel, there are various doors for birth as a god or human, or being with a body, without a body, form realm and formless realm. And there is like 2 doors which we cannot see. One is at the point between the eyebrows, and the other one is at the crown. And so there is this 8 impure doors, and the 9th door is the crown, the opening to the central channel. So how we block these doors and so on is explained extensively in the scriptures that teach on Poa. But if this is complicated and you cannot understand all of these doors and so on, actually it is that it's better if you just visualize the central channel and the consciousness leaving from the crown. Because if you think about all these doors, then that also leads to all kinds of thoughts in your mind, and you might not then close them actually. So therefore it is that it's better to just focus on the central channel and the crown opening and the Buddha Amitabha sitting above the crown at the entrance of the central channel. And so then in the center of your body is the central channel, as thick as a cane whip. And at the center of your heart is your own mind, visualized as a sphere of light. At the time of transference, the sphere of light should transfer out through your crown and dissolve into Amitabha's heart. In this way, practice moving it up with hik many times, and then, without meditating on anything whatsoever, settle within the essence of practice. So here, we mainly practice with the central channel. So to train, but in the practice of the central channel is the crucial point here. And it is mainly through the quality of the central channel that we do take birth in the higher realms and not in the lower realms. And it is mainly smoking that blocks the central channel. And so for that, therefore, one should also take blessing pills, mani pills, and so on. And so with regard to this, like the thickness of the central channel, it is said here, it is as thick as a cane whip. But actually, one should take one's own middle finger as a measure. So it has that kind of thickness. And then it has 4 qualities. It is clear, empty, it is straight, and it is subtle or lucid. So it is clear, like a butter lamp's flame, like a fire flame. And it is empty, like kind of a rainbow light structure. And it is straight like the pillar of a house. And so then it is subtle and lucid, and its color is reddish. So there is this actual central channel within us, and through meditation practice, the consciousness dissolves into the central channel, and thereby ordinary thoughts come to an end. So we should focus on that, on just training, practicing with just the central channel here. Now, when we are alive, there are many people actually who engage in this visualization practice. And so if you habituate to that, then later when you die, all you focus on is the central channel and the crown opening. And it is that the central channel has the nature of Vajra Varahi. And then this bindu drop here, this sphere of light that transfers, is your own mind, your own awareness. Some people also visualize that in the form of a seed syllable like the Shri, and some visualize it as a small sphere of light the size of a pea that is vibrant and ready to leap and brilliant like a sphere of light, like a rainbow. And also Amitabha above your crown is like a rainbow. So when at death consciousness transfers, it is like a rainbow merging with a rainbow, or light merging with light. So understanding it in this way, you should continuously engage in practice while you're still alive. And then at the time of death, it will become instant. Then you instantly will think of your crown and the Buddha Amitabha, and then your consciousness will merge with Amitabha's heart. So at the time of Pobal, of the transference of consciousness, there is one most important state of mind, our kind of awareness that we must have, and that is explained in the aspiration prayer of Sukhavati. The Buddha possesses 2 main qualities, which is the omniscient wisdom and loving compassion. The omniscient wisdom of the Buddha is related to our Buddha nature. So on the basis, on the ground, our mind is connected to the mental continuum of the Buddha. And secondly, the loving compassion is the nature of the Sambhogakaya, Amitabha above our crown. And how we should think of that is that we should think that above the crown of each and every sentient being abides a Buddha Amitabha. So this is a very, very important point. Then there is no then you won't see Amitabha as some kind of separate being, but more as all pervasive. So with his loving compassion, he regards all sentient beings. He looks upon all sentient beings throughout the 6 periods of day and night. His love, the Buddha's love, is all pervasive. So this is what you need to recognize by visualizing that Buddha Amitabha abides above the crown of every sentient being. And so this is also how you should think when you read this aspiration prayer. Then it will be of real benefit. So that is my own personal experience. So then there is on that regard, there's one extremely important point that we have to remember, and that is, while we are alive, we should recite and practice the aspiration prayer of Sukhavati. It explains the qualities of the Pure Land. So when you read this prayer, you recognize these qualities, and also you think about the suffering of the human world, even as precious human beings. And in the human world, if we want to achieve happiness, we can achieve happiness, but it requires a lot of effort and hardship. In the Pure Land, happiness and bliss arises effortlessly, naturally, spontaneously. So some people have doubts about this, whether it really exists or not. And also when I was young, I had some doubts about it, because it's the way the Pure Land is described is like a rainbow and doesn't really exist. But now, even in this world, even the happiness of this world arises from love and compassion, from the merit created through practices like generosity, ethical conduct, and patience, and so forth. So even worldly happiness in this world comes from bodhicitta. And therefore also the Pure Land of the Buddha Amitabha is created from the Buddha Amitabha's bodhicitta. The Buddha Amitabha had cultivated bodhicitta for many aeons. For many aeons he had accumulated merit, and he had made offerings to limitless Buddhas. And as a result of his bodhicitta, the Pure Land of Dzogchen was created. So if you understand the quality of bodhicitta, then you will have no doubt that a Pure Land is the natural creation, the natural manifestation of bodhicitta. It is a creation of bodhicitta. So if you do not doubt in bodhicitta, then you will not doubt in the Pure Land. So there, for example, then if you have no doubts, then you will think, of course, it's better if we don't die, but it's okay to die. Even if I were to die, I would have no suffering, because I will go to the Pure Land of Dzogchen. It is just like you're anticipating traveling to a very pleasant place. It is like you already got your passport, your visa, and so on to go there. So you have no doubt that you will get there. So this kind of like state of mind, this perception is very important. And this is also how I myself have practiced. I'm actually a very sinful person, and I'm really reflected upon that again and again. And I'm also praying, I'm also reciting the aspiration prayer of Sukhavati. And I'm just sharing my own experiences now when I teach the Dharma. So again and again, read this aspiration prayer of Sukhavati, because then really certainty arises, certainty in the quality of bodhicitta arises. And then when you understand that, then you will also understand that it is through the power of bodhicitta that the Pure Land is actually created. So that is why this is a very important point.